Today, I'm going to explain how a lightsaber works. First off, I would like to establish that this video does not contain any spoilers for Star Wars Episode 7, or really spoilers for any of the Star Wars movies for that matter. It is simply an explanation of how a weapon, used by both the Sith and the Jedi, works. Getting to the actual topic on hand, it is important to note that a lightsaber blade is not made of actual light, but rather a plasma contained by magnetic fields. Of course, to generate such a plasma, you need an energy source, which is where we will start. Most lightsabers use a diadium power cell as their source of energy. The power cell itself is little more than a battery, albeit a very long-lasting one. They rarely need to be recharged, but if they do, they are connected directly to the recharging port at the base of the lightsaber. The recharging port itself is covered by the pommel cap, or, less officially, the end piece of the lightsaber. Lightsabers work in a rather unique manner in that they don't use a completed circuit to transfer power. Rather, they use power vortex rings embedded in a power field conductor surrounding the power cell to move the energy from the battery to the rest of the lightsaber. While the specific workings of the power vortex rings is not well understood, it is quite likely that they function similar to a coil gun, in that they use alternating magnetic fields to accelerate a projectile, in this case, the energy from the power cell. The energy to power these vortex rings is likely provided from the power cell in a traditional separate circuit. There is of course an insulator surrounding the power field conductor. Just above the power cell, we have the Lightsaber Crystal, the key component allowing the lightsaber to work. In general, you want 2 to 3 crystals in your lightsaber. The first one, the primary crystal, converts the energy from the power cell into the distinctive plasma. The plasma then goes to 1 or 2 focusing crystals, which focus the plasma into a single beam. Aside from creating and focusing the plasma, the lightsaber crystals also give the blade its characteristic hue. You could exclude the focusing crystals and have the Emitter Matrix, which I'll get to next, do the entire focusing, leaving your lightsaber with only 1 crystal, but this generally isn't recommended. The Jedi use the naturally forming Kyber crystals in their lightsabers. While they can be found across the galaxy, Kyber crystals were highly concentrated in the caves of the ice planet Ilum. Kyber crystals most often produce green or blue blade colors, although others, such as purple, were known to exist. The Sith, on the other hand, use the artificially made Sith crystals. These synthetic crystals produce a red blade color. After being created and focused by the lightsaber crystals, the plasma then travels to the Emitter Matrix. The Emitter Matrix further focuses the beam and then emits it. The first part of the Emitter Matrix is the cycling field energizers. These focus the beam into an arc wave. The arc wave then travels to the energy modulation circuit, which controls how much plasma is to be emitted. A power adjustment knob could change the blade's intensity at this point. Moving on, the arc wave then goes through the magnetic stabilizing ring. This creates a magnetic field that contains the arc wave as a single beam, while also limiting the length of the blade. Any excess energy would be arced back at the end of the blade and redirected back to the power cell, conserving energy. The blade length could also be adjusted by a knob. Note, when installing the Emitter Matrix, great care should be made not to invert it, as this is the most common form of lightsaber failure, often resulting in an explosion. Once past the magnetic stabilizing ring, the arc wave plasma was emitted as the characteristic lightsaber blade. Being made of plasma, the lightsaber blade could cut through almost anything and even deflect blaster bolts. Now, while the inner workings of all lightsabers are roughly the same, the exterior changes quite a bit from lightsaber to lightsaber. Although one thing all lightsabers do need is some way to activate. This most often comes in the form of a pressure switch that completes the circuit of the power vortex rings and field conductor. A pressure switch requires somebody to be holding the lightsaber for it to activate, unless you use the Force, of course. Another common variation is a standard switch, where you can toggle it on, and the blade will stay on until you turn it off. A less common variation is a Force switch, where the user needs to use the Force to turn the lightsaber on. The switch itself can come in the form of a plate, a button, a lever, or whatever mechanism the owner wants to use to turn on their weapon. Aside from activation, most lightsabers include a blade emitter shroud that protects the user from cutting their own hands off. Most single-bladed lightsabers also have a belt ring, allowing easy attachment to one's belt. Note, double-bladed lightsabers aren't any more complicated than two single-bladed lightsabers attached at their base. Lastly, the specific shape of the hilt is up to the creator of the lightsaber. As long as it has enough room to contain all the necessary components, the user can have their lightsaber look like whatever they want. Nevertheless, hope you enjoyed it, hope you learned something, and see ya.